Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter, and I'm an intuitive astrologer. And today is April 20th, 2024. And Taylor Swift has just released her The Tortured Poets Department album, double album. And of course, it's been getting a lot of press. I have done a previous video on Taylor and Travis's chemistry, synastry, their energy together. And today, what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what I believe are some things, reasons why Joe and Taylor were doomed from the beginning, and why I think even more so now than before that Travis and Taylor are meant for each other. So I've added a point on the wheel that's called the vertex and the anti-vertex. The vertex is this point that says VX, and it is always in an opposition to the anti-vertex. Now, while I don't have Joe or Travis's exact time of birth, I think even if I leave the moon out of this, because the moon will move the quickest, we can see some of the planets will remain at their degree and in that house. And based on Taylor's chart, we can see where these men fall in her life. So I've started with Joe because Joe is the past, and then we'll move on to Travis, which is definitely her future. So the inner wheel is lighter gray. This is Taylor's natal chart, and the lines in the white circle are her natal aspects. They are not the aspects of her and Joe together. So one of the first things I noticed when I looked at Joe's chart, now again, the time of birth is not verified, so we've done 12 p.m. on February 21st, 1991 in Kent, United Kingdom. So here we see, and this was so obvious to me that this was really the problem. This is Joe's Saturn at 1 degree of Aquarius in an exact conjunction with Taylor's Venus in Aquarius. And her Venus in Aquarius is in her second house of her skills, of her voice. And Saturn is repressive. This is also her partnerships, her love, her own personal unique expression, as well as what her hopes and her dreams are, to be loved for herself. Well, of course, the world will love her. So this was very fascinating to me. I mean, it literally just, I go, oh, there it is right there. He was very repressive, limiting, depressing, could potentially stoked her fears about her own self-confidence and her self-worth. We see if we click on her Venus that it makes a quincunx to her moon. And when you have the moon in Cancer, yes, it is the empress of the manor, the lordess of the manor, the ruler of the manor, but it's also a sign that is so caring and giving that it can tend to have a sense of a little bit of insecurity. We talk about how the crab crawls from the side to side rather than moving forward. And I can see also how, on some level, well, let me back up because the quincunx is a blind spot. So here, I think what we're seeing is, because I haven't addressed his north node yet, but here it is, conjunct his Saturn. So there's a repression to his own desires. There's a limitation to his own sense of leadership, ambition, career goals. And this is in a blind spot to her emotional body, her moon, her sense of feeling home. Now, I'm not going to address this 26-degree moon because, again, the time is not verified and I can't be sure of that. But if it is indeed true, it is in an opposition to her first house, and it is in opposition to her natal Mars and obviously her ascendant at 25-degree Scorpio. But before I move on, I just want to point out that I can also see how she fell a little bit in love with him because of the sextile. I shouldn't say a little bit. She spent 6 years of her life with him. I can see how she fell in love with him because look at this sextile to his Venus in Pisces. So this also could contribute to a sense of her seeing him in a dreamy way, in her imagining him to be more emotive than maybe he is. Yes, Venus is in its exaltation in Pisces. And right now, if Joe is experiencing Neptune on his Pisces, and Neptune will retrograde, and in Neptune's challenging energy, it will erode something within the home. So this is really fascinating to me. And we see that her Venus is in a loose opposition to his retrograding Jupiter in Leo, and then again, his South Node. I believe that while the South Node has some bearing here, he could potentially have an issue with his home, his sense of caring, his sense of emoting, his sense of being empathetic to others. Because when we look at the South Node, we're looking at challenging aspects that it represents soul's patterns. But more so, I think it's this North Node. I feel jealousy here, to be honest with you. I feel as if while he was attracted to her, he was also jealous of her because she was exceeding beyond his own career. Because frankly, I don't know if I would know who Joe Alwyn was without Taylor being in existence. Now, let's look at something else. His Neptune, now these are generational planets, which is also why I feel pretty confident in talking about them, because there are going to be aspects that were in play regardless of his rising sign. So here we have this 12-degree Uranus. There is a theory that any planet at 12 degrees of Capricorn indicates great riches. But here we have a conjunction to Neptune. And I believe that this is an erosion of that unique expression. This is an erosion. He's caught up in the expectations of what others want in the way of his ambitions. I don't believe he's really free to express his unique self. And this further is indicated by Saturn at the 1 degree of Aquarius. I know Saturn co-rules Aquarius. And so, but I don't think Saturn's any freer in Aquarius. It still has a sense of following the rules about being innovative, which can slow the roll. Whereas Uranus is just, let's go for it. Let's express that creative genius. Now, this combination, his Uranus is almost within 1 degree of her Neptune. So we have this sort of weird double whammy that feels like it's eroding his sense of expression, or at least from his perception. We also see that her Saturn, and I would venture to say, because it's at 13 degrees and because Neptune is at 11 degrees, this represents her hopes and her dreams, that Aquarian energy. The 13th degree is the Mars energy, which is her co-ruler. So she has a real tenacity to hang in there and to do the job, where I don't know that Joe does. Joe's Mars is over here in Gemini, and it could be that he easily gets distracted without, he just wants short bits of information. And I venture to say that we already can see it in her lyrics. She's very not only poetic, but she's also well versed and very I can't find the word. But she knows words so well. It'll come to me in a minute. So there's a real challenge. To me, there's a real sense of competition with this man and this. I don't know if she felt it, but I think he felt it, like needing to uphold that manly energy of being the one at the top of the heap. So let me look real quickly. Now let's talk about these vertexes, right? Because I'm going to bring this up about with Travis as well. We see her vertex here this is the anti-vertex, which is like the South Node. And then this is her North Node, or her North Node representation of her vertex. So this is what she wants to express, and where the joy and where the opportunity lies within this access. And they call it a point of fate because the universe conspires to bring things together where you get to make a fated choice. Will you default back to old habits? Will you embrace the evolution that is before you and the choices that come along with that evolution? And we see that she has Pluto here, the ruler of the house, in the house, giving her an opportunity for that transformation by digging deep into what brings her a sense of nurturing and love and feeling as if somebody else cares for her. We can't forget that the 8th house rules other people, other people's money. So this would be how other people respond to her and how they nurture her. And she has a wound with that, as does Joe. But again, this is a bit of a generational planet or point, Chiron, asteroid. And so everybody born in around this time, 1989 or even 85 earlier, would have this aspect. But the degree is where it becomes so, where the clarity comes for me. So here is her wound comes from her words or people not responding to her words. And her vertex is giving her an opportunity to rewrite her beliefs and to experience something new. That 9th degree is the Sagittarian degree. Now look at Joe has the Sagittarian degree of his Chiron, but his Chiron is retrograde. And when Chiron is retrograde, it's more difficult to get over the wound and transform it into the gift. Her Chiron is also retrograde. So this would be, I can see from her chart with Mars on the ascendant and having that 25-degree rising that she could very well be attacked for her Venusian artistry and her stinginess. I heard someone on TikTok say that Taylor had a Libra rising, and I started laughing because it's so not, her albums would never sound the way they do. Reputation wouldn't be there. Blank Space wouldn't be there. So many of her songs, but we won't even talk about Thank You, Amy right now. But anyway, so this is really important. And I think it's important to note that her anti-vertex is in that blind spot to his Mars. So, this is where she gets to feel with her heart, with her inner knowing. And I'm sure that this relationship was really back and forth between fueling her and then depleting her. And I hate to say it, but Mars in Gemini in the 7th house, I can see that as being a cheater. The shadow side of Gemini can be a trickster. The shadow side of Mercury, duplicitous, loses attention. And we see this Capricorn degree. So I feel like he's got a cold streak about him, even, well, if this moon is correct at all, because his moon will either have to be in Taurus or it will be in Gemini if the time is incorrect. So this would indicate that if it is in Taurus, while it would be exalted, it would be very stubborn and fixed and focused on work per se, focused on his own skills, on his own voice. If it's in Gemini, then we have a real sort of more fickle energy there. Okay, now let's just go over to Travis and Taylor now. We see Travis is the outer wheel. We've seen this wheel before. The difference in my previous video, the difference in this one was what struck me was when I added the vertex axis, her point of fate here that changes her dynamic of what she experiences as a soul in the earthly plane is in an exact conjunction to his Jupiter, bringing her such expansion of home and of emotional security and feeling wealth through love. And I also didn't bring this up in the previous video, but with his Mars and the Sun both here in Libra in basically the 11th house, his Mars is on the 10th and 11th house cusp. He's so comfortable standing next to her in the limelight, being her partner. It doesn't remotely diminish his sense of self. And seeing this, this is just kismet. These two are just madly in love. There's his Venus on her, literally conjunct exact within 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes. I think that's a 37 and that's a 41. So they're within 4 minutes of each other, this pairing on the ascendant of the power couple in the sign of power, Scorpio, of great wealth and of influence of others. The other beautiful thing that I see here now, we saw the same thing with Joe. Joe had Saturn making aspects to her, but here, how I perceive it is that he is steady towards her dreams. You know, this Saturn and Neptune is a very spiritual thing for me as an intuitive and as an astrologer. We're seeing Saturn about to become in a relationship with Neptune once again in the sign of Pisces later this year, or I should say next year, 2025. But to me, this is when Saturn becomes very spiritually aware of the soul, of the soul's imprint. And when we see his Neptune directly on her anti-vertex, which is like the south node, a point of the soul's familiarity, there's a lot going on between these two that they probably don't even really realize. And another thing that's really beautiful, I learned this from Lada Dunchemba, is she says you always want the man's moon to be behind the woman's. Now, technically, I'm not sure they're really, technically, I guess it is behind her, but what I see is her sun shining in the first house and his willingness to be an emotional support for her as they travel around the world and she allows herself to stretch her skills, to stretch her talents. They have this, here there could have been in a past life a point where they were torn apart for some reason or another. And if we think of Travis as the gladiator, a modern day gladiator, I would assume they probably had the same roles, man and woman, in a previous lifetime. And now she's getting to assert her more masculine energies. And I'm not talking about these as genders. I'm talking about them as energies, whereas the female is receptive, the female receives, and the male asserts. So here he is absolutely supportive of her self-assertion and becoming everything that she can be. And this differs very much. Now, when we look at her Venus and we click on it, it makes a loose trine to his Mercury. So while this is not a tight trine, it's a favorable aspect nonetheless, because it's skirting on this edge of this earth sign of Capricorn. And I feel like this is where he understands her processes. He understands her uniqueness. He appreciates the process. We look at the 25th degree, that's the Mars degree. She has this Mars first degree Venus. And to me, it's just a soul's imprint of knowing that we aren't truly genders, we are energies. And these two energies, being Travis and Taylor, have been royalty before. We see both of them having the South Node in Leo. And well, of course, there was a whole not a generation, I should say, there's a whole year and a half probably of people who have this dynamic. It's other things that contribute to this feeling of royalty, because when I look at the vertex at the ninth degree, it's the ninth house. If we're looking at past lives, there's the ninth degree, Sagittarius. What is her sun? A Sagittarius. She's very Sagittarian. She's very Cancerian. But if you screw her over, forget about it. She is going to, and we've seen it, but she doesn't do it with venom. She does it with a deep, raw truth that penetrates our own psychological hurts and disappointments. And that's why we relate to her. And those that don't really relate to her, I believe, have not really given her an open space. So I don't villainize them. I just think that they're missing out on something that's super, super powerful and something really exciting to watch happen. So one quick thing I wanted to do was to look at, we see here, there is a trine from Travis's moon to her south node and from her south node to Eris. This is interesting to me. I just noticed that because this could very much indicate that they have been together before. And this is at the Leo degree. So she has been standing in a point of leadership. And I'm pretty sure that that point of leadership probably ended up devastating her in some way, experiencing loss. The 16th degree is the Cancerian degree where her Chiron is. Pluto rules death and destruction. The 12th house rules the ending of life also. It's where the soul leaves the physical experience. And then we see his Pluto at 13 degrees, which could indicate the gladiator, the warrior. And here we see his south node at the Piscean degree of the spiritual warrior. So there's a very good possibility that their previous, at least one lifetime, was cut short for them. And here in this lifetime, they get a great opportunity to enjoy a much more bountiful and long-lasting relationship. Now, I want to offer this. When we look at, I'm laughing again, when I look at Taylor's 7th house and this primary Gemini energy, I think of how playful that Travis is and how curious he is and how willing he is to be open. And I can't help but go back and look at Joe. Here we are with Joe, so dry, you know, just not letting her express herself. And here almost being combative within that energy of her curiosity. It's really kind of sad. I mean, I don't know what it was really like. And believe me, I'm not a Taylor, I'm not a Swiftie officially. You know, I'm 64 years old. I have found her recently, and Travis is the reason. But as I have delved into her library of music and watched the evolution, I understand that in her early years, I would not relate to her teenage dynamic. But as she has become a woman, she is speaking universal truths that relate to us at all chapters of our adult journey. So anyway, so this is it for me. I'm gonna stop on our lovebirds here and end the chart here with them. I really believe that they are going to get married. And let me just finally say this, because Taylor, you know, in her Easter eggs, she has a thing for 13s. And in my previous video, I said they were going to get married on October 13th, 2024. When I initially picked that day, I realized it was a 13, but I didn't realize that it was two 13s, meaning that 10 and 13 equal 5 in 2024, which is an 8, and that reduces down to a 13. It is a Sunday. And when I made my original video, it was back in November of 2023, and Jason was still playing for the Eagles. He has since retired. I am officially making a prediction that they will get married in a very intimate, quiet setting with just their intimate friends and best friends and family. And I think it's going to be a ruse that they say this is a party for Travis's 35th birthday. And instead, it's going to be a gorgeous wedding. And we'll find out about it later, maybe months later, just like we did with their relationship. Every time I tune into them, Spirit shows me John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. And they pulled off the most beautiful, intimate wedding back east in the day. So anyway, so that's it for my Taylor Swift and the Tortured Poets Department album and addressing that. I'm having a fun time playing with all this stuff. She really makes listening to her music an interactive experience where we start to invest ourselves in our relatability to her story and into her own. Well, I'm rooting for her happiness here. So I think she found it. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please share, please comment. I don't care if you agree with me or don't agree with me. I enjoy the banter. So let's go for it. And let's all just root this couple on, because I really believe that as Pluto transited over her Venus, we know that's happening. Let me do that really quick. Well, let me just stop here for a second. Let me remove Travis and put the transit wheel up. Because see how Pluto is here? Pluto is going to retrograde to 29 degrees. It's going to bang up on Joe pretty much, kind of deconstruct him a bit. And I think this is going to bring her a secret love that happens in her neighborhood and her home that nobody knows about, but they will announce later. So that's part of what I think is going on here. All right, everybody. Again, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, sending you lots of love. Hope you're enjoying this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. It's certainly sparked a lot of thoughts in my head. All right, take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.